We're live on EMW TV with Rose Parade Recordings Company and Shreddies. We're going to be having a listening party and a talking party. So how are you all doing today?
Good, thanks.
Good, all good.
Brilliant.
How are you?
Yeah. So. It's funny, these streams are always stress out for the first hour. But then once we're live, it's just a nice conversation, right? So, yeah, brilliant. So, Rose Parade Recording Company have started recently, and one of the first signings is Shreddy. So it's a really nice opportunity for us to talk a bit about how the label has come about, and also then your relationship between artist and label. So I'm really excited to get into that, and also just what it's like to actually start a record label nowadays. I'm pretty sure that it's completely different to maybe the old ways, and there's plenty to talk about around there. But I just wanted to start really with the with going back to what it says on the Rose Parade Recording Company's website, kind of just to give an out an overview of what you're actually set out to do. So it's just roseparaderecordingco.com for anyone who's interested, and I will paste that in the chat as well. It's also in the comments, so be sure to check that out and give it a share around. We're live on YouTube and on Facebook, so giving it a go on YouTube today, but I'm going to be focusing on the chat on Facebook because I believe there'll be more questions coming in. And if anyone does have any questions throughout about what it's like to start a record label, if you got any questions about starting a record label, or for Shreddies and his recent EP and how that was made, or any other questions that you might have, then please do drop them in. But like I say, first of all, I'll read through this, and it kind of sets the scene really about what Rose Parade Recording Company is. So Rose Parade Recording Company is an artist-driven, democratic record label, unique in its dedication to transparency and equality. As a multi-genre label, our aim is to collaborate across communities and work with the most unique and inspiring artists, enhanced by the lived experience of our collective and board. We believe in creating a home for artists and their recordings, crafting short-run physical releases and exclusive boutique packages, developing a long-lasting creative relationship with artists and fans alike. And you've got a quote. Is that Elliott Smith?
It is,
As
yeah.
in the Elliott Smith?
Yeah, yes, the Elliott Smith. So, like, the whole, like, Rose Parade, obviously it's, like, comes from, like, America, but the whole like his like Elliott Smith song, like when you follow me down to the Rose Parade. So it was like so like Tom and Gav, who were like part of the label, like they're massive kind of Elliott Smith fans. So like obviously it was a perfect fit really for like what they wanted to do as well. And I think like that starting a new kind of like, I don't know if they thought about this, but like the idea of like having a parade of like people of like who love the same things and have like kind of feels like a community, I guess. Just doing that. So yeah, it's a great name, and like it's just all the pinks and roses and everything. What more can you want?
Yeah, love it. So yeah, okay, so that's a little bit of the name then, and it's funny. I was with a friend the other day. And we were just playing a game of chess and talking, and one of the things that came up is Elliott Smith. And I was saying, like, this guy, like, if you listen to his recordings and like the actual, the quality of the recordings, it's like a guy with a guitar, a scratchy guitar, and it's like, there's nothing special about it. But then, like, when you actually get into the artist, it's just so much, it's so powerful. And like, yeah, he was one of the voices when we were growing up, and like, there's so much emotion in his lyrical content. And I mean, yeah, like, there's nothing virtuoso about what he does, but it's just really like, I don't know, it touches something. I can, it's like, I mean, with like many artists, the posthumous sort of like appeal of artists as well can kind of drive them as well. But yeah, no, I really rate him as an artist. And again, thanks everybody for joining in. So please let us know where you're coming from. Just want to do the rounds really, get an idea of what each of you do. So if you'd like to just do a quick intro, Caitlin first, and then Jason, and then back to Shreddies. And
Yeah. So hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm the marketing manager slash A&R slash do anything really for Rose Parade. I'm also a promoter, kind of manager, everything else under the sun really in music industry. So yeah, that's me really, based in Cardiff, and yeah, absolutely love doing this. So yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm Jason. I joined the label as a director, the board of directors back in February. When I'm not doing Rose Parade, I'm various things, including a professional writer, and I've worked a lot on things like funding, and I've recently been moving into like the creative industries and music industry, working with bands for like creative funding, and I'd been looking for ways of like getting more involved in the behind the scenes of the local music community after I moved back here a couple of years ago. And I think with lockdown coming along and feeling a bit detached and things like that, the label came along at the right sort of time. So I'm currently learning all about that.
Just as a side note, Jason had one of the most impressive CVs I've ever read in my life. And just like, because like so much science and like physics and everything. I was just like, whoa. Yeah.
I'm also a doctoral physicist. Yeah.
Very useful to have on a record label.
Yeah.
Shreddies.
Yeah, so I'm Shreddies, or Josh is my human name. So I'm a electronic musician, general musician. I play bass in a band called Rose Tea House as well. I'm signed to Rose Parade Recording Co. And yeah, I've been making music since I was probably about 12 or so. And yeah, lived in Cardiff my whole life and sort of, I guess, become part of that scene and gotten to know these lovely people at Rose Parade. And yeah, that's me.
That's brilliant. Thank you, guys. And yeah, it's really nice to have you on again. I just want to start then about the relationship that you've built up between Shreddies as an artist and Rose Parade, just to get a kind of idea of what Rose Parade does for artists, and not to get too into a conversation where maybe Shreddies is sat there not being involved in the conversation. I'd like to like maybe guide it around that. So how did it start? I mean, like one thing that what really amazed me and I'm quite envious of is that you haven't really been involved too much in electronic music, right? You're
Sure.
like how fresh are you into like creating electronic music?
I mean, yeah, probably since I was like between being like 14 till like 23, the only electronic music I liked was the first Aphex Twin album. I didn't care about anything else. Wasn't interested in listening to anything else. But yeah, but I don't know what happened. It's like the past year or so, I got a bit deeper into it, got into sort of techno and ambient music and what have you. And sort of just, I guess, out of boredom, started just making tunes on my laptop. And yeah, and Tom and Heather from Rose Parade were very early supporters of that, from me just putting things on Bandcamp. And fast forward 6 months from there, and I sent them a record I'd sort of put together, and they were like, "We love this. We'll put it on our new record label." So yeah, long story short, that is what happened.
Was there? Were you making a lot of tracks before, and were you sending them all to Heather and Tom, or was that like the first time you ever sent them anything? Or
I'd been sort of since like when the first lockdown sort of got announced, when that was a very fresh thing. I made a little EP and put it on Bandcamp just to sort of I don't know, it was the spirit of the times. It was like everyone was putting out just little lockdown covers or what have you. I was just I'll make some tunes. Tom and Heather were friends of mine and had just heard my music through that, I guess.
Okay.
But it was never as like calculated as that of being like, I'll send you my music, will you please put it out on my label, on your label? But yeah, they were very early supporters from me, just going around on Bandcamp,
Yeah, definitely. And loads of artists are doing that now, and they self-releasing. And this kind of brings back into Rose Parade recording company. Then, what is it that Rose Parade recording company can offer an artist that maybe, like, say, an artist who's self-releasing? What is it that Rose Parade recording company can offer that an artist maybe can't achieve on their own? Is there something in particular, or is it more about that, like you say, it's being a community and being involved, and more like the artist wants to be involved in a community? If that's the question, that if I've worded it okay for you to
Yeah, I think like a big part of it for us is, again, like a community of artists and like music professionals working together. And I think a lot of people can see a label as quite a dirty thing, especially with like all like the news that's going around about kind of like high profile labels who have like had like dodgy dealings and like hoarding money. Just for the record, we are not like that at all. Like, we run as a community interest company. So we're very different in that, like, any money that we make, which is obviously not that much because we work in the indie circles, is invested right back into the label and our artists, and we work directly with them. But like the main thing for us, which is why we started our singles club, was because we wanted to give our like smaller artists the opportunity to be able to put their work out on Spotify and other DSPs as well. A lot of people who are self-releasing like go to companies like DistroKid and like other ones like Ditto and like loads of different ones are out there, but they always like take a much bigger percentage and they cost a lot to put your work on, when really I think working with a label, especially like a community label, you've got that opportunity to work directly with people that you could probably meet on the street, rather than a company that's based in America or Sweden or wherever. So there's always someone that's like on the end of like an email or a phone call, and that's what I think we pride ourselves on, how like accessible I guess we are to people when they need us.
I think as well, like working with a label, what that also brings for you is like just having more people to support you, more another set of eyes, an objective sort of thing to work with. I think as well, being an artist, maybe if you're a solo artist, it can be quite an isolating experience trying to like get your music out there. So you've actually got a group of people who are able to like back you and bring you their experience and their direction and things like that, as well as a more sort of general point.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, especially like I can't imagine how amazing it must be to be in this lockdown, but like have that community around you that you can share ideas with and continue to feel like you're part of something. When you're an isolated artist, maybe it's very difficult, especially when you're struggling with that, like constantly having to push yourself, like you say, having to deal with the percentages from distro companies and kind of like have a little bit of that pressure taken off you, and also just have someone to talk to, I guess, is also like really important at the moment. I'm sure like one of the things that interests me is the democratic approach, but also like the fact that you're a board, and so obviously you have a lot of conversations, and maybe these conversations don't just involve who you're going to release next. Maybe there's more other things that happen, and maybe just like a support network as well amongst yourself. So I can really see the benefits there. I mean, like, in terms of why we're here today, we're with a listening party, so we're going to be playing like your EP, and it's I've been trying to remember to call it correct. I've got it up here, so it's Fidofridafaunaflora.
Correct. Yeah, I just call it quadruple F. I don't have the time to say the whole thing.
Quad F. Yeah, or no, it's brilliant. Now, there's elements of all sorts in there. It's an interesting piece, and it's something I feel is to do with listening to it in one sitting, which we're not going to do today because I think maybe it would be a bit not in it wouldn't work with the interview. I think if we sat here for however long, it's like 15 minutes with it playing. Although I would recommend if someone wants to listen to it in full, do it, because it kind of flows from one into another. And there's all sorts of sounds in there, and you know, from like more like, I don't know, dance techno right through to like Twin Peaks style, like, I don't know. And I don't know if you've actually referenced Twin Peaks in there, but there's loads of Twin Peaks in the last track, Flora.
Oh yeah.
And Brian Eno, things like that. So yeah, it's like loads of like elements, and like as a multi-genre label, like it is really, it's quite unique to hear something like this where it's very techno driven alongside, you know, your other artists who are kind of guitar. And let me just go back to your website so I don't mess up the names, but your recent releases or your artists on your roster at the moment are Shreddies, TJ Roberts and Sam Barnes, right? And then you've also got publishing as well. 3 completely different artists. How do you all tie that together? So you got like, you know, is each individual artist, you know, you have your own plan and you push them out in their own unique way, or do you have like a way that you just push each artist the same way no matter the genre? Like how do you approach each release?
Yeah, a lot of it comes from like finding out what artists want, and obviously no 2 artists are the same, even if they make similar music. Like people have goals and like things they want to achieve in like their careers, and so with each release plan we kind of start from like the very beginning, really. So we look at like what coverage they might have had before. If they're a brand new artist, we look at like, right, who are they similar to? Where could we go with this? And yeah, so we just work with artists from day one then to kind of create like a release plan and just go through contracts and just like talk about exactly what they want to do, like their image and like what they want to be putting out, who they'd like to work with, kind of that, in that kind of way, really.
That's brilliant. Great. So I would love to get onto like your expertise in funding, Jason, and also talk a little bit more about the EP that we're going to listen to. But first of all, I think before I go on too much, I'm going to play the first video that kind of, well, it's a loop, but the track is underneath the video, which is the important bit. So this track is called Fido, right?
Fido. I say it Fido, but whatever you like.
Yeah, Fido. Brilliant. So this is Fido by Shreddies. I'm going to go live on it now. So I hope everybody enjoys. Okay, we're live again with Rose Parade recording and Shreddies. That was the first track, Friday. And just give us a little idea of that then. Why have you called it Fidofridafaunaflora? What's the story behind the name?
Good question. I mean, ultimately, it's sort of I think I did that with to sort of create this illusion of there being a narrative without there being any sort of lyrical content, you know. And in my mind, I think they were sort of, my mind sort of put together these like personas or characters for each one, and I sort of base the music around. But it's hard to explain because it's pretty it's sort of instrumental music, and the meaning of it is abstract ultimately. But yeah, there isn't really a story. It's called that because it popped up in my mind, and I was like, yeah, all right.
And it's an interesting one to Google as well. So yeah, this is good. Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, Jason, you mentioned that you kind of like have some expertise in funding. So like as this kind of label, just when did this label actually begin then? I mean, I know you've come onto it a bit late, but when was it? When did it begin?
I guess it launched last October. Is that right, Caitlin?
Yeah, so we launched last October, but obviously the seeds were like sown a long time before then. So so TJ Roberts, so the band TJ Roberts, and so Tom, Heather, Jasper, and Gav, they were on a label and decided but then decided it wasn't really for them. They wanted to like release an album like on their own terms, and they were fortunate to get some funding from BBC Horizon, which was for like PR and like some recordings. To finish off their album that came out last December, and decided, right, well, how can we get this money to go a little bit further? So they thought, right, let's self-release and start a record label from it. And like, because Tom always talks a lot about like the economy of music and trying to put like music, like some money back into whether it's studio time or things like that, and keep that money churning within our local kind of grassroots sort of music industries, really. So it kind of like snowballed from there, and then fast forward to I think it was about July, August time, they got in touch with me because I was like kind of like managing them, and I've been like a big like fan of theirs for years, like since I saw them for the first time in Clubby Bar ages ago. And then I was like, yeah, I really want to get involved in this. So they invited me to become one of their directors, and then we went from there then. So yeah, October we officially launched, but yeah, March was that's when it kind of all kicked off, really.
Wow, so kind of like deep into like the age of COVID, and the reason why I wanted to like ask Jason about funding is kind of like for artists who are maybe struggling at the moment, or you know, like someone who wants to start a label up, you know, what kind of funding is available out there? Because you know, Caitlin just mentioned like Horizons funding, which you know is a great platform, which loads of the artists I've talked to have been a part of. But is there other things out there, and how complicated is it to do that?
Well, there's a lot of stuff out there, and this is something for me. Like a couple of years ago, I kind of had a bit of a light bulb moment because I've worked in research funding for years, and I wanted to come back to do more stuff with music, and I kind of realized that suddenly, well, at least, you know, while I was distracted by doing something else, funding in the creative industries or funding to be like an independent band had become a thing. It didn't exist 20 years ago when I was a teenager aspiring to be like a rock star. So it was like, oh, wow, okay. So, you know, and there's a lot of things around. So like, yeah, Horizons, things like Beacons, Forte, which I think are sort of aimed at sort of like young artists, emerging artists or new artists. If you're trying to do something like play at something like Focus Wales Festival, which is a big networking conference, music festival, that has an application process as well. It's not necessarily a complicated thing to apply for. I think people are a bit intimidated by it if they've not done it before, but it's usually, fairly spelt out. Like, there'll be a website, there'll be a form, you fill it in, you answer the questions you get asked. And I think as well as with any of these things, I suppose ultimately you need perhaps the music, or you need to be at a certain level in your career, you need to fit the eligibility.
Yeah.
And then that'll get assessed by a panel, and it's in the lap of the gods then. But in principle, there's lots of stuff out there, and it's worth trying for it.
Yeah, I mean, you just touched upon it a little bit at the end there, where it's like you have to be at a specific stage. Like for an artist, what how can you kind of like set measures to know when you're ready to apply for these things? Where is there any sort of like signifiers that maybe would help an artist decide, right, I'm ready now? Is like,
I think it's a tricky one. This is something I'm currently trying to get my head around a lot, and that there'll be a lot of things people will call on to do with how well they've managed to like market or promote themselves, sales or streams or things like that. It's all very kind of fluid, I suppose. It's all very I don't think there's one absolute metric. But again, it's perhaps the case you put across. So I think when people want to fund somebody, that they're looking to fund something that perhaps has legs, that's gonna go somewhere. It's not just someone who thought it was a cool idea to release some music. Something with a bit of like momentum behind it.
Someone who sells tins with their names on.
Perhaps, yeah. All stuff like that is great for like marketing and branding. So yeah, it depends, but I think it depends on the career stage that you're at. I think the PRS Foundation have a lot of funding schemes, and a lot of them are sort of, some are entry level, some are established. And I suppose as well, a good thing to do if you're never sure about it is contact the organisation, because sometimes they'll they'll be able to explain it to you, perhaps in a different way, or reassure you that it's not just some kind of black box or that your name being picked out of a hat. There is a process.
Yeah, 100%. And I guess going back to your work, Shreddies, as a bassist and a performer,
sure.
Obviously, like during COVID, we've not been able to perform or work within that part of the music industry, and that's a massive sort of that's a signifier for these platforms to say, okay, these people are ready. Look at them; they got their gigs and they can obviously perform. So, like in terms of like your EP. That we're talking about today, did you have intentions when you were making it to turn that into a live performance, or is it because of like the lockdown that you decided to go more like into a listening project rather than create a live experience?
That's a good question. I think originally it like the music is built with like none of that is in mind. I never envisioned playing it live at all. But and I think it's made as a response to like not being able to make music in a sort of the format I'm more used to. But since then, like when you sort of see people like enjoying your music, you think, oh, okay, how can I make this work in a live setting? But yeah, it's absolutely like something I think about after I've made the music,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I know I went a bit on a tangent off from platforms to apply to, but to performance, but I see a direct link between the two really.
Sure.
And I guess it can be very difficult if you flip it to the other side, being someone on one of the judging boards. And I was speaking to Captain recently about his festival work, how he has to book artists for a festival coming up without being able to go and see them live. It's very difficult. And I guess it's the same for anyone who's trying to decide who gets the funding. I mean, you can't, it's unfair sometimes to base it all on, numbers and online presence, because some artists are introverted and they don't want to have that presence online. Their place is on the stage performing, and, that's where they're alive, so I can imagine it's quite difficult for a lot of artists to see that a way through. But sorry, I went off on a bit of a tangent there.
So I think that's a good point, though. I think trying to do, like, I think with lockdown, everyone's had to become like an online presence, and you know, it doesn't necessarily work so well for everyone all the time, at least not all of the time. I certainly don't like doing that exclusively, but you know, needs must, I suppose, at the moment. But I think it's a big part these days, though. You know, if you're a business, if you're a band, you know, the promotion, it's just a great way to reach people is doing things online and digitally. But then again, exactly what you said, not having the live aspect of it for a lot of acts, that's you know what they are. You know, they you know, it's weird not having them as a live entity.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you just mentioned also, like, there's other ways to reach an audience other than you know, being online, and I alluded already to a tin with Shreddies' name on, which is available to buy on your website in the shop section. As well
Just
as
one left. There's one left of the collector's tins. We've still got a couple left for the normal ones as well. So get on there and get one if you haven't got one.
And you can use them for all sorts, right? You can put mints in them, picks.
No.
What else?
I don't know, anything tin sized.
Adam Whitmore used them for his film canisters as well. So they're really good for that.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And Adam Whitmore's an absolute legend in the music scene.
True.
Really great guy. So I'm conscious that we've been speaking for a bit. I'm gonna go right into the second track on the EP. It's called Frida. That's how I pronounce it. And so we'll play this and then we'll be right back with you. Just let me do the same again. we are live with Rose Parade Recording Company and Shreddies. That was the second track on the EP Fidofridafaunaflora called Frida. And just whilst that was playing, we were just having a little discussion about live streams and what streams we enjoyed. And Caitlin, you just started saying some great stuff about that, and about like how after, like, once we start getting back into going out to concerts again, there's still going to be a space for maybe venues to be using streaming technology for accessibility and stuff. So do you want to just go into that a little bit about what you were just talking about, and maybe something?
Yeah, so like we were talking a little bit about like the fantastic like Goyle event that was put on by the BBC back in, like, I can't even remember when it was, like a few months ago. I've lost track of the days and weeks and time, that's all. But anyway, so we were saying how much like we love like Kate Levon's set that she did, which was like directed by Griff Reese, and funny enough, like some people I know like worked on that as well. So hi Ren, if you're watching. So but the kind of blurred lines between kind of a live show and a cinematic experience, I think like there's so much scope for these kind of things to like happen once we can get back into venues, because like a big thing for me is access, and we all know like how little venues there are in Cardiff that are wheelchair accessible or have things like hearing loops, things like that. Or people that might have social anxiety and struggle to get out of the house, but still don't want to miss their favorite band play a club. I think it would be like really great to see more kind of live streams, or like kind of set up in a way that allow for an audience to be in the room whilst there's also a stream there, so you don't have to miss a show in theory. And then it's more income for bands, for venues, for promoters. Okay, there are like different things that you have to deal with like PRS, for example, and all the licensing and things that have come from that recently. But then it's like a really interesting conversation, I think, that needs to be had in terms, and like we look at like Zoom, for example, how that's now like really impacted our lives. And so is there really a need to travel up to London to go to a business meeting or whatever and spend hundreds of pounds getting up there, having lunch and everything that comes from that? I think doing things in this kind of way is obviously the future and is here to stay. So why not like invest in technology that allows everyone to get the most out of live music as much as we love going to see it?
I really like that point about accessibility, and the other thing is kind of like that it's more than just putting a camera or a webcam in the corner of a room and then plugging an XLR into a feed, and like you could actually do something. And it also then opens up the conversation about how maybe there could be some collaborations with a theatre company or like, you know, a film maker, you know, and like the creative industries of Cardiff, it's so the interpollination anyway between, you know, it's amazing. Cardiff's such a unique place like that, because I think of the size of it, maybe the locality of it as well, and the fact that, you know, every artist has, you know, like a whole string of talents, and then can like lend them to someone else. And I think it would be an amazing thing to see, like people collaborating on stages. And yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't already happened you know, this lockdown, and maybe this is just a kickstart for that.
I think you're right. I mean, the technology's existed. It's just, you know, it just what people do as conventional, what's normal, isn't it? So I think it's kind of made people realize that you can do it. So try and take the best from it.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, hopefully someone's listening who's a promoter or a venue owner or a theatre company owner, or, you know, a billionaire and wants to fund this. If not, you know, we'll carry on anyway, regardless.
Yeah. Come my way, please.
yeah. Any eccentric millionaires out there, please. Cardiff needs you. So music venues obviously are taking a hit at the moment, and you know, for various reasons. And Shreddies, you've already mentioned that you kind of grown up in Cardiff around the music scene here and the venues, and being in a band, obviously, like you must have a real strong connection to the people that run it, and also like the venues. And how do you feel at the moment? You know, looking at Cardiff, do you feel like it's in a good place for bands and artists, or do you think there's work that needs doing?
Cardiff is an interesting one. Like, to be a musician, it's on one hand, it's great because it's like we've been saying, the tight knitness of it is really great, and it's a really great feeling to be, walk down Womanby Street any week, any night you want, and see your mate's band or what have you. But at the same time, I think that you can also feel quite trapped in it's in such a small city. It's kind of, I always say that Cardiff is it's like a big city with a small town vibe or something. It's it can feel hard to I guess cross that border into England or Europe or the wider world and what have you. And yeah, I don't have the answer for how to do that either. But yeah.
No, I completely understand what you're saying. It's kind of like, if you're in this scene here, even like the concept of going to Bristol and the venues, like I go to Bristol and there's so many amazing venues, and there's again, it's going back to this collaborative approach, and maybe it's not happening because it's a different city, but the idea, and there is cross collaboration. I've seen promoters bringing in bands who are touring Bristol, or maybe there's a venue owner in Bristol who brings a group of bands down to, but more talk between cities and different places to like create these corridors for bands would be great to see, and more like promotion nights that normally, like maybe they're in Manchester, they come down to Cardiff for a night, or like vice versa, and do swaps and exchanges, and try and break out of that bubble where like you're like so many bands just play in Cardiff. Maybe it'd be nice to, or not just in Cardiff, but just kind of stick to what they know. It'd be nice to see some crosstalk, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Like the number of like bands, I think like it's such an age-old thing, isn't it? Like talking about the touring circuit, and the UK tour normally consists of England, maybe one date in Scotland, like, and very rarely can you get like a good-sized indie band that will come to Cardiff, because that's a big part of it is infrastructure. A lot of the times, like a live agent, a booking agent will book a tour that consists of academy group venues, so like your O2 academies up and down the country. So it's like, and then they'll hit Bristol, but so they're like 500, 600, 700 cap spaces. But we don't have that in Cardiff. We don't have a good medium-sized venue as of yet. Hopefully, like if the plans of club go ahead, which would be incredible if they do, we'll finally have that kind of space. But there's not enough of like a step between going from the smaller, like of the grassroots venues, so like your Moons, your Clubby Rebuck, your Tiny Rebel, your Fuels, and then you're going up to like the Globe, which is like 300 cap. You have Tram Sheds then, which are like higher again, so approximately 1,000 cap, and then you're hitting kind of the university circuit then, which is like a lot bigger, and not enough bands can fill that.
Yeah, sure.
So where do you go, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think having more, it's like more the UK kind of national press kind of maybe like work to get to know the Cardiff scene. I think we could be in a better position, but so we've just got to fight as much as we can to like be noticed, really. So it's
yeah, absolutely.
There's so much there to unpick.
Yeah, there is, and like the idea of if club goes ahead and expands, that's a really good thing for the city, and like hopefully some of the other venues will continue to be protected, or at least there'll be some work done to better that so that bands will still have some form of circuit to come to. And one of the things I really miss is Goody Who. As a sound engineer in Goody Who, like we'd get bands that had driven like, you know, from Amsterdam or like from wherever, like Scotland, and they just turn up outside Goody Who all looking like they've like not slept for 5 days, like unpack their band, like their gear, and just go. And they're like, yeah, we're doing a tour and we're funding it ourselves and we don't care. We're in Goody Who and we love it here. This is like great. But then they move on to the next city and they're just doing it. And I didn't see it any. Oh, I worked predominantly in Goody Who, so maybe it happened elsewhere. But I feel like Goody Who was a really special place for that. It was really amazing just to like the depth and breadth of people that passed through that from all over the place, all over the world.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And what was beautiful about that place, because so like I worked there for like a little bit at the end. I was like a marketing manager there. And what was so wonderful about getting to know Goody Who was the fact that people went there because it was Goody Who. They didn't go there because of like where Goody Who was positioned on Guildford Crescent. You don't get a lot of passing trade there.
No.
So people would go there because there was something on there. They knew that that's the place they could go get a drink and find their tribe and like find people. And it's a testament to the team there. Like Lloyd Griffiths was a fantastic promoter.
Yeah.
Danny was brilliant as well.
Relentless.
And just like they worked their absolute arses off to like make that place the way it was. And like John, the bar manager as well.
Yeah.
So like it was just a fantastic place to be, and I miss it so much.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think Cardiff Council really need to get their act together, and like with the Music City kind of strategy, they're trying to push them through. Like, where is it? Give more, like, invest in culture, like grassroots culture, especially, so you can get your next, well, not even your next Tom Joneses and your Shirley Bassey's and whatever, because I think that's it feels like a bit of a mute argument to make, because why should people have to get bigger?
Yeah.
Like, if they want to do it as a hobby, there's no shame in doing that. Like, if they want to play, like, to, like, Clubby Bavach, or play to, like, even, like, a small venue, like, on St. Mary Street or whatever.
Yeah.
But for that night, they feel, like, absolutely on top of the world, like, of, like, fans from, like, their city, like, singing their songs. Like, My Name is Ian is a classic example of that.
Yeah.
How many people, like, outside, really, South Wales, or, like, that's no shame on them, really know all the words to like the best case scenario, we die at the same time, like a Cardiff audience does, and like singing it like at the top of their lungs, really. And just like things like that.
That was a light bulb moment.
Experiences.
Yeah, that was a light bulb moment for me when I was mixing them in Goody Who, and like the whole of Goody Who was just singing along word for word, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Like something's happening here, like, cause So I've just been told I should smile more on the stream. So sure. Anyway, look, we are doing a listening party as well. So we're on to track 3 of the EP. Shreddies EP is Fidofridafaunaflora. I'm going to keep saying it in full because that's what we're talking about. It's the listening party. And it's available on Spotify. But you mentioned on your website that you also like to do boutique packages. And I've already mentioned and kind of like shamelessly plugged your tin. But is there like physical releases of the EP available?
Yeah, I've got one over there. Yeah.
So we got like the standard cassette version. So like the collector's tin, there were only 5 made, and so Tom, who's like kind of the label manager, and Mr. TJ Roberts himself, he loves Warhammer and kind of like painting kind of like the figures and stuff like that. Yeah. So he hand painted like a load of like 5 tins, like amazing, with like different kind of 8-bit style designs on. So like there were like 2, I think, mountains. We had like a moon kind of one, which I've got, and I think the one that's left now is a duck. So if anyone is interested in the duck, I suggest like getting on the website Pretty Sharpish to have a look. And then we've got like, I think about maybe 10 or so tapes left, which I think Josh is about to model for us now.
He's thought about it, and now he's gonna.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Wow, look at that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it comes with our very own Obi strip as well. So we like are really into kind of like the Japanese sort of like vinyl kind of things where you get like the strips that always comes like with like the translation into Japanese. But we wanted to be like the first people to do it in Welsh. So that's become our thing now. At any physical releases, even on tapes, that we make a Welsh version, sort
Brilliant.
of like with the Welsh track names and things like that. So just to get a little bit of Welsh language into our work as well.
Lovely. So I'll get into that in a second. But right now, this is going to be the third track off the EP, and it's called Fauna. back live with Rose Parade Recording Company and Shreddies, and that was the third track on his EP called Fauna, and it's available on Spotify and on the Rose Parade Recording Company's website. And we were just discussing in the background Twin Peaks, which will be referenced in the final. I personally think it's referenced in the final track. I haven't actually got confirmation from you yet, but
it's not a total reference, but I know exactly what you mean. It was a subconscious reference.
Yeah. And if you just like to show for the audience your amazing Twin Peaks mug.
Oh, sure. There we go.
Just
beautiful.
Beautiful.
Have you got some damn fine coffee in there, or is it currently empty?
Oh, there's like some dregs of some tea, but normally it is black coffee in the mug.
Good. Black coffee is the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about soundtracks, and I don't know if I asked you a couple of questions off stream, but this is one I didn't ask you. Do you deal with sync with artists? Do you help them get placements in film or soundtracks, or is that something you've thought about?
At the moment, it's something that we'd love to do. I think it's just having the capacity to do it and the time of day, because obviously like the networking and kind of things that come along with that. I think it's getting into like those kinds of circles really, and kind of dealing with that. But never say never. I think it's something that like we do have a lot of interest in, especially like with the work of like Sam Barnes and people like that as well, and to an extent like Shreddies, and like especially because obviously like instrumental work tends to be like best really for those kind of things. So but you never know what could happen. So we're excited to kind of go down all avenues where we can, and hopefully have enough hours in the day.
Yeah, they call it like sometimes an untapped resource for some like, especially if you are a cooperative or a company already that like has a body of work. So a question for, say, someone who's just starting to think about maybe starting a record label. Is it a wise thing to do? And if so, how does one go about starting a record label?
Don't. No, I'm joking. No, yeah. So that is an interesting question, because we did it in a completely different way to like how people normally do these kind of things.
Yeah.
So when Tom and the band like decided to start like their record label, they thought, right, well, how can we operate so that's not just something that is the shareholder kind of thing, because for one, there's not much money that's going to be made from like an indie record label unless like you end up with like a buyout from like Sony or something like that. But then so they were like looking at like ways and means they could do it. So like the first thing they were looking at was like a cooperative, and that's great. But again, with shares, there'll be no money really to give back to people. So we ended up like going down the community interest company route, which means that we can then apply for funding for kind of community kind of resources, and like so like a big thing that we're looking to do eventually once COVID kind of goes away finally, is do like more in-person workshops for kind of underrepresented groups in music, and kind of do like more things on getting young girls interested in a career in the music industry, whether that's as a musician, so kind of doing like almost a School of Rock style kind of like learn to play guitar, kind of drums, so very kind of DIY orientated, but just doing things like that. But anyway, I think if you're going to start like to release people's music, I think go into it realizing that you need a good amount, like a decent amount of money behind you to really do it properly. And like if you've got a group of friends that want to get together, like and pool some money together and say, right, we've got a friends band, wants to release something, right, let's go ahead and like get some money together, do a physical kind of release, and just go from there, really. And like, I think starting it in a pandemic was just a nuts idea, but it's actually been like a brilliant thing, just because of the number of people that we've met online through it, and hopefully that'll put us in good stead for the future when we can get out and about, see people, chat to people at gigs, and then like just have everything that comes from that, really. But yeah, it's a lot of work and a lot of effort, but if you're a massive music fan who's prepared to like risk some money, just as with everything in the music industry, it's a good thing to go for.
I suppose it's the same with starting any sort of business or a company or any kind of initiative. That there's always perhaps a risk. It's going to take investment of time. So it's something I'm learning about myself now, is what's involved in actually helping run a record label. And even for a small record label, there's quite a lot of work. So I guess if you ask, is it a wise thing to do? If you're committed and I think you've got a vision and you're excited about it and you want to help other artists, then yes, it's probably a wise thing to do. There's no guarantee. If you just think it's kind of cool, perhaps do a bit of research first and understand what might actually go into it. Maybe speak to someone who, runs a label, understand what's involved.
It's the I think you touched upon something great, and there's just been a lovely comment as well, which I'll get to in a second. But it's like when you try and introduce people to music as an opportunity, as a career, as a path, like immediately, the idea of being on a stage or performing, all that is, is front of mind. But also, there's so much going on in the background, right? The music business, and you've already talked about it earlier on. The music industry and is everything that supports that experience, right? So it's like, even the venues, the bar people behind it are part of the music industry, or like the person putting out the posters, or like the person doing the sync licensing, or like networking in a suit, or like the person who's selling tickets or touting, or all of these people. And there's so many more like roles within the music industry that are just as crucial to keep the things going. So and I think the more support there is for younger, maybe people who feel alienated or isolated from being a part of music because they're not the stereotypical performer who's talented on a guitar but loves music, it's really important for them to learn that at a young age, that it's possible, that it's still possible to be a part of something in the music business, even understand the music business as well as something to study, and business in general. So Essex Harvard has said, and this is a lovely comment, it says, "Hi, ancient person here. My son is studying creative music technology in Falmouth. He's from Cardiff. I'm so impressed by you creative lot, from making the music to promoting the music, pushing on despite the crap environment at the moment in the city. Don't ever ease up. You're doing great stuff, and I hope that young people like my son will, in future, be joining your creative army. By the way, his YouTube channel is CA-NA if you want to see. All power to you." So,
thank you very much, Essex.
No, that's cool.
It's beautiful, isn't it? That's a powerful comment. Thank you so much. And you've just made my day, because someone's actually engaged on a stream. So on that, no, it's brilliant. Yes, so I'm just going to go around and ask you one question each. Who are you most excited about musically at the moment? It doesn't have to be someone you're releasing, it just in general. So Caitlin first.
Oh God, there's so many, but I'm just going to say the first band that comes to my head. They're a band from London via Italy, and they're called Klowski.
How do you spell that?
So it's QLOWSKI, and found out about these guys because they got in touch with me as a promoter, and hopefully we'll be putting them on at some point soon. So yeah, so I run Clue, which is gig promoters kind of deal. So we shall see what happens there. But I'm very excited about them.
You've heard it here. have a listen. Jace.
Oh, everything on Rose Parade recordings.
Yeah.
Toe the line.
Oh man, it's funny. So
Thanks, Jason.
I spend quite a bit of time writing music reviews,
Okay.
I've been enjoying quite a lot of stuff off a label called Kai Gwyn up in North Wales. Bands like Peace Mailin and Oma Loma, they do a lot of Welsh language stuff. It's all really, really nicely written. It's all a little bit perhaps psychedelic, but some of it's kind of like synth driven, some of it's kind of lo-fi indie. Yeah, I've been digging a lot of that recently.
Bro. So check that out as well. And Shreddies.
Okay, it's not it isn't artist, but it's under the guise of being a record label. It's called Czech Rex. It's on Bandcamp.
Check Rex.
Yeah, isn't like Rex short for recordings. Yeah, he's a friend of mine who he's like my, I guess, my electronic music comrade, but he makes it's sort of like, I could only describe it as like ambient rainforest techno. It's really unique. I implore you to give it a listen. And
yeah, I think I heard that the other day. I did actually really enjoy it. So I will.
Oh yeah, there's
now I know the connection.
There's one album on Spotify, but most of them on Bandcamp, and they're all into like different sort of pretend artists, and it's good. Yeah, give that a go.
Love it.
Actually, so
say that again. Sorry.
You just released the cassette, actually. So
bro. And also, so for young musicians such as Essex's son in creative music technology, how do they submit their music to Rose Parade Recording Company for listening and potential work?
Through our website. So we've got a web form. That's the best way to get in touch. It suggests including, links to your music, particularly the music you want to release, because that's ultimately what we make a decision on. But we're also happy for people to get in touch, more generally if they're just more, curious and things like that.
Yeah, it's always good to hear what people's plans are as well, and where they want to go, and kind of what, if any, success they've had so far. Because I think we really value people that have just really had to go themselves, and already kind of have an understanding of how the way our label works, or the way music business works in general, and because it's pointless really sending it something like a SoundCloud link of just you singing a cover, or no shade or anything there, but I think if you're just going to send us that with no real kind of sort of description behind that, or what you come from, there's nothing we can really do with that, so we won't really answer things like that. But if you can show you've got a passion for what you do, you're making something that's exciting, new, and a bit different to the crowd, we'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think showing that you've got some sort of idea of where you want to go, I think that's quite important as well. I think with any label you're approaching, if you've written a great song but you don't really have a direction, then I think a label might not be quite so ready to invest their time in you. If you've got a plan of who you're trying to target, your audience, perhaps how well you've been doing, perhaps you've had some success, it's about sort of packaging that up a little bit perhaps as well. Nothing overly formal, but just having direction, I suppose.
Yeah, in terms of just looking for people to talk about, also having content available. And I know we've already talked about how some artists don't like to have that much of an online presence, but I guess it's just finding other ways to create content and and kind of get it out there. Because it's always nice to see an artist who's really doing stuff. It gives you more of an idea that maybe they're good to work with if they're constantly creating. But it's a difficult one. And it's such a long conversation. Maybe for another day. Is should artists be constantly creating, or are they allowed to not have that constant stream of content and still be recognized as good artists? And I believe the latter, personally, because personally when I make music, like I have gaps where I just don't feel like doing it, and then I do it, but it's like, you know,
I suppose if you've got the capacity and the ability to write, like, you know, a banging track every day, then by all means do it. But like, I think having a bit of downtime, or you know, being perhaps selective with your work is also a good thing.
I think especially with like social media and that kind of thing, to be always on, and like I feel like I can talk about this because that's kind of my role as like a marketing kind of social media, like kind of like manager really for artists, venues, whatever. Is the idea that you don't always have to be churning out content for your social media every single day or whatever, because no one really expects that. If you are doing that, really there is kind of something wrong. We kind of want you to see, like, you go away for a bit and like you can create like a really nice sort of excitement, like of people not hearing from you, and then all of a sudden, bam, you've got something that's coming out. I think that can be really exciting. But like we could talk about this for hours, but like the whole kind of expose, I guess, about like the whole Simon Cowell kind of like X Factor situation, like showing like kind of like even at the top, you've got people that are so like it can like really like bring like mental health like right down this, like this morning, if you're constantly working every day of your life like on music or on touring, whatever, for 5+ years without a real break. So I think like mental health, and like this isn't completely like, you can go off on a massive tangent here, but like mental health and looking after yourself and being authentically you as well is like a really important thing, I think. And like just looking after yourself as an artist and not feeling like you have to be on it all the time, because in general, no one should expect you to do that.
So true.
So as with social media as well, that there's so much content on there all the time that, you know, I often sort of think to myself, does somebody really need to be making more all the time and contributing to that? You know, how much more visibility does it get somebody? And I think perhaps people then also get kind of get a bit numb to it as well. So seeing somebody who's appeared from, you know, who's disappeared for a while and appeared again, you know, that's kind of a bit more exciting than someone who's putting something out or any old thing out every day.
Yeah, I want stories like Captain Beefheart going off to the desert and creating trout mask replica. And like almost like causing his band to have, you know, psychological breakdowns several times because like they spent like a month tripping. But you know, the music's amazing. And you know,
can you imagine that actually happening now? Like, cause like your record, like if there's like record label was like, oh, you need to be like doing behind the scenes kind of Instagram stories of all this. Can you imagine what that would look like? Oh god,
it would be absolutely terrible. It'd be like
scenes bonus footage.
Yeah, it would be like the you know, like it would be the upside down version of that bloody Channel 5 like Celebrity Island where everybody's in a house.
Oh my god, yeah.
It would be the opposite of that. Absolutely.
Wow.
Anyway, forget it. We're going on a tangent. This has been amazing really talking to you, and there's so much more we could have talked about. But we are here to listen to the final track of the EP by Shreddies called Fidofridafaunaflora, and it's available now to listen to. So this is Flora. Any final words before we play out?
Nah, cool. Just thanks very much for listening and having us. And yeah, much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do this.
No, thank you.
No, thanks for having us.
No problem.
Been good chat.
Hopefully, I'll be able to come to a showcase or something in the future when the venue's open and have a listen to your music in real.
Well, fingers crossed.
Yes.
October time, we're gonna have a little birthday celebration, so look out for deets on that.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you so much. And this has been EMW TV.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks so much.